de Blasio of New York City. I happen to be a member of one of the larger pension fund boards in the United States, the New York City Employees Retirement System, a $40 billion pension fund. And I am wearing a green tie today, like I did a few weeks ago when a number of us gathered to say it's time to take money out of politics. I'm going to keep wearing green ties. We're all going to keep protesting. We're all going to keep showing up until the day when we finally do something about the money that is flooding our political system, compromising our elections, warping our democracy. And we're here in front of the Securities and Exchange Commission because they can do something about this. The SEC can do something about the fact that money is taking over the political process. They can force publicly traded corporations to disclose their political spending. It's not a lot to ask to simply disclose what they're doing. The SEC has the power, but the SEC is not using the power. For 7 months, organizations all over the country, investors, good government groups, citizen groups, have been calling upon the SEC to act, to simply pass a requirement that there has to be disclosure. Investors need this information. We need to know what the companies we're investing in are doing. Citizens need to know. The SEC continues to sit on its hands. Well, my friends, this is a wake-up call to the SEC. We want to thank our friend the alarm clock for telling us this is a wake-up call to the SEC. It's time for them to stop sitting on their hands. It's time for them to act. I have to tell you, if I've ever seen an issue where there are strong feelings, whether people are Democrat, Republican, or independent, this is it. The American people are disgusted by the amount of money flowing into the political process. They demand change. That change needs to start here at the SEC. They can wait no longer. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bob Edgar. I'm President and CEO of Common Cause, a good government group working to limit money in politics. But I have to say, before I begin to share some words, that it's great to see the alarm clock here. It ticks me off to think about some of these issues. Very alarming. And I guess if you look at the emergency wagon here, America must be sick. Anyway, we stand here today to tell the SEC to protect shareholders and to protect democracy. Since the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, corporations have been able to make unlimited secret donations to shadowy political organizations that fund attack ads, political organizations that exist to take down good legislation and good people. And it is all done in secret. Shareholders can't know. Investors can't know. Just a few blocks from here, up at the Supreme Court is spending 3 days analyzing the health care legislation that was put in place over the past 2 years. I have to say, if you think about it, money has tainted even the construction of that health care legislation, and corporate money is being spent to destroy that legislation and to prevent it from its implementation. We need the SEC to act to end the secrecy. We need the SEC to require that public companies disclose all of their public giving. When regular people like you and me invest in corporations through our retirement plans and our pension plans, we need to know if that same corporation is working to make our lives better or worse. Shareholders need to know. That's how democracy should work. The marketplace is supposed to work that way as well. Pension fund directors need to know. We all need to know And today, we can. It has never been more clear to me than it is today how much we need the SEC to pass this rule. I just spent this morning up in the Supreme Court. This week, the court is hearing oral arguments about Obama's health care law. Powerful drug insurance companies have been working to stop that law in its tracks since the word go. And how did they do it? They secretly funded a major backdoor campaign to kill the law before it ever made it out of Congress. But they didn't do it out in the open. They didn't do it so their shareholders could know. They did it in secret. They laundered the money through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Aetna, Cigna, United Health Group, and WellPoint. They all did it in secret. They spent more than $24 million over a 30-day period on ads that shamelessly spread reckless lies about what was in the health care legislation. I want to thank Bill de Blasio for helping me turn the pages on history. The ads claimed it would cost jobs and increase the deficit. These same insurance companies never told their shareholders what they were doing. Why? Because those same shareholders would have told them to stop. Those same shareholders are working people, unions who are major clients of those insurance companies. Corporate executives that were trying to kill the health care bill were able to do what they did because they could hide it. The only reason we know about this is due to the digging of investigative reporters, but it doesn't have to be that way. If the marketplace were allowed to work, if the information was public, then these abuses would be brought to light, and they would end. We need to end the secrecy. We need to end the corporate executives raiding the treasuries of corporations they run to play politics. It's bad for America. It's bad for business. We need the SEC to act, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but today. Thank you very much.
I'm David Arkish, the Director of Public Citizen, Congress Watch Division. We're here today calling on the SEC to write a rule requiring publicly held corporations to disclose their political spending to their shareholders. The principle here is simple and unassailable. The owners of publicly held corporations have a right to know how their money is being spent on politics. The need for corporate disclosure has only grown more important since the Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United versus FEC. As Bob said, in that decision, the Supreme Court authorized corporations to spend unlimited amounts of money directly from their corporate treasuries to influence elections. From the perspective of investors, that's their money. It's their money being spent to influence elections. Their money being spent in ways that they don't even know about, much less approve of necessarily. Americans are outraged at this problem. Investors are outraged at this problem. The public could hardly be speaking louder or more clearly in calling on the SEC to write this rule. Over 75,000 Americans have written in to the SEC to call for this rule. Over half of those people, I think nearly 2/3, are public citizen members and supporters. We think this is one of the most critical first steps in responding to the flood of anonymous cash into our elections. One SEC commissioner has already come out in favor publicly of the rule we're calling for. It's past time for the rest of the commission to join him and do their job to protect American investors by ensuring they know how their money is being spent on politics. Thank you.
David. My name is Gary. And thank you, Bill. My name is Gary Kalman. I'm the director of U.S. PERC's Federal Legislative Program. I'm proud to stand here today with my colleagues to call on the SEC to pass the rule to finally allow shareholders to know about what's happening with their own money. My colleagues have spoken eloquently about the need for disclosure. I want to talk a little bit about some of the impacts that we've seen already, and this is just about the money we know about. There is certainly reason to believe that there's a lot more money out there, and the things that we don't know about are probably larger than what we do know about. So, for example, in the 2008 election, had the Citizens United rule been in place, ExxonMobil's profits that year were about $45 billion. If they'd used those profits for the presidential election, they could have spent more than all the presidential candidates and all the congressional candidates combined 10 times over. Now, it's unlikely that a corporation is going to use all its profits for politics, but it gives you the extent of the problem that just one corporation can have that big an impact. A few weeks ago, we released a report calling Loopholes for Sale, in which we tracked 280 of the Fortune 500 companies and found that over the last 3 years, not only had they spent more on lobbying than they did in taxes, but they received over $215 billion in tax breaks, for which they had spent in that same period $220 million in campaign expenses through their corporate tax. We've seen a lot of you written about super PACs. We've seen, we did a report where we also looked into super PACs, and we found that almost 1 in 5, every $5 that's been contributed to a super PAC has been through corporate donations. And so it is time for shareholders to know about what's happening and the influence that their money is having, and be able to make decisions about whether or not this spending is good for shareholders or bad. We would argue it's not only bad for democracy, but bad for shareholders. And we urge the SEC to take action today. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kate Coyne McCoy. I'm the Executive Director of CAPS, Coalition for Accountability in Political Spending. CAPS is the nation's only bipartisan, Republican and Democrat, coalition of elected leaders working to curb the role of corporate political spending in politics. On March 2nd, we sent a letter to Mary Shapiro, the Commissioner of the SEC, the Chairwoman of the SEC, requesting a meeting on March 2nd. She hasn't responded to us. She hasn't responded to our member, Bill Lockyer, the Treasurer of California, Bill de Blasio, the Public Advocate of New York City, Governor Pat Quinn, a member from Illinois. 90 million constituents have not been responded to. Over $1 trillion worth of pension fund assets have been ignored, as Mary Shapiro has ignored our request for a meeting to discuss this rule change. Surprisingly, today, we were given a meeting at 10:30 with a colleague of hers. So we are thrilled that that will happen after this event. We will go in and carry more than 1,600 petitions collected by our offices that add to the 75,000 public comments already collected. I want to thank our partners from Common Cause and from Public Citizen and PERG, and I want to thank all of the organizations that have gone to great lengths to submit comment. Can you imagine waking up and just not doing your job for 7 months? I don't know if you did that, but I think if I did it, I wouldn't get paid. I probably wouldn't have a job. And so today we are going to demand that the SEC do their job.
A brilliant use of wordplay. So here's the bottom line. The SEC is not used to shareholders showing up on their doorstep and demanding action. The SEC is not used to good government groups showing up on their doorstep and demanding action. The SEC is not used to the people demanding it do its job. But from now on, that's what we're going to do. We will keep coming back and keep coming back until the SEC acts. 75,000 Americans have called upon the SEC to act. As Kate said, some of the most prominent elected officials and pension funds in the country have called upon the SEC to act. The SEC needs to understand it can't hide here in an obscure building and think we don't notice that time is running out. There is an election coming up. Money is flooding the process now. The public is disgusted. The SEC has to act. It's time now. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you, everyone.